What's going on, everyone? Matesh here, and today I have for you guys a video about a smartphone that is basically the exact opposite of a Pixel phone, and that is the LG Velvet. Now, the reason I say that this phone is the exact opposite of like a Pixel phone is the fact that the Pixel phones tend to go for the broadest audience possible. Now, I'm not saying that the LG Velvet is not really made for a broad audience, but they are made for a broad audience, but they also offer you some experiences that are very much tailor-made for like niche audiences. So for example, the LG Velvet by itself is just pretty much a plain smartphone, but LG offers this, the dual screen attachment, which makes this phone, I think, much more interesting for somebody who's looking to get work done, because bam, right there, you've got a second display. So if you're someone who's like super productivity focused, you do a lot of stuff on your smartphone, you may want a second display, because let's face it, second display always helps in getting more stuff done because you can have two apps open at the same time. Now you could do that with split screen, but having two full apps open is going to be interesting. So that's why I say this phone is the exact opposite of a Pixel phone, because the LG goes for niche things like this. And in today's video, I want to give you guys some of my first impressions of this, because I've had this for about a week now, and it hasn't been enough time to do a full review, but I really do have some thoughts about this. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So before we dive into the dual screen accessory, which I think is definitely the most interesting and fun part of it for me, I want to talk about the phone itself. Now the phone here itself is also in a way very interesting, because LG has decided to give up on going with the all-out flagship phones. Instead, they've gone for what I would consider a really good mid-range plus device. So this right here, much like the Pixel 5, is rocking a Snapdragon 765G processor. So that is the mid-range Snapdragon processor, and it's got 6 GB of RAM, just like the Pixel 5, and 120 GB of storage, just like the Pixel 5. So this right here is very much an equivalent of the Pixel 5, except it also has a massive 6.8-inch 1080p OLED display. And that is definitely my first impression of this phone, was just how massive this thing is, because I've been using a Pixel 4a most recently, and compared to that, this thing is just huge. But it doesn't feel that bad in the hand, because there's a very tall aspect ratio, so it does fit somewhat comfortably in my hand. Now, if you want to reach the top of the screen, you are gonna need to like just flex this thing around to get to the top of the screen, but otherwise, this is a great display, and watching stuff on this has been fantastic. So yeah, great display for that. I will say out of the box, it was a little oversaturated, but you can tune the display in the settings, so I would highly recommend doing that. Right now, it looks so good being on the, I believe, the adaptive setting or the natural setting, whatever it's called. But yeah, once you set it to that, it looks really good, and I highly recommend it. Now, much like the Pixel 5, I would say you don't really need to worry about performance on this phone, because the Snapdragon 765 is a very capable processor. You're gonna be able to do everything that you normally do without really any hiccups whatsoever. This thing can shoot 4K video, this thing can edit video as well, you can play games on it, you can do whatever you're normally used to doing with a smartphone on this phone. You don't have to worry about the fact that it doesn't have the latest and greatest flagship processor. It just works. But like I said, the phone itself, interesting, but by itself is not the thing that I want to talk about. Oh, also, 765G means that this phone does have 5G. This, however, is an AT&T model, so I've not really had a chance to test out the 5G since I'm not on AT&T, but yeah, that's fine. It does have 5G for those of you who are in a 5G zone and want it. All right, but next up, let's talk about the dual screen accessory. So this thing right here is a plastic case basically for your phone that has a screen built into it. Now it has, of course, all the cutouts that you would expect out of a case. So it's got the camera cutout, the whole right side of it is open, so you can access the power button and you can put the phone in easily and get it out. On the left side, you got the volume up and down buttons and the Google Assistant button that's on there. So all those buttons will be mapped out of here as well. On the bottom, you have a headphone jack port, because this is an LG phone and they do include a headphone jack, though this one does not have the quad DAC that the older LG phones used to have. You've also got this pogo pin connector. That's for the magnetic charger for this. So it does come in the box, and it's a little adapter, so your USB-C cable will plug into the magnetic adapter and that thing just snaps onto here. I'll show you guys some B-roll of that. And yeah, it's really cool, fun to see. I kind of just wish I had a pass-through USB-C instead of this magnetic dongle, so that I don't have to worry about losing the dongle and having to buy a new one of those, but it's fine, it works. And then inside the case, I don't know if you guys can see, there is a USB-C plug that the phone gets plugged into, and that is what actually provides the power and data for the secondary display. So to get this all powered up, you just take your smartphone, just slide it in there, plug in the USB-C and then just snap it into the case and bam, there you go. Now once you do that, sometimes the screen may not turn on directly, and that's because you haven't powered it on. So there is a little floating button here that you can tap on. It'll say turn on dual screen, and once you hook on that, bam, you've got a dual screen smartphone, something that I honestly did not think I was going to be able to use this year, but there it is. This is one of the first dual screen smartphones. I know the Surface Duo is out now, but this right here was one of the OG dual screen smartphones. One of the benefits of like a dual screen accessory like this versus the Microsoft Surface Duo is the fact that if you want to use this as a regular smartphone, you can do that. The screen isn't attached. You can take this thing off and just go back to using it regular smartphone. But when you need to, you can slap this thing on and use it as a dual screen accessory. So that's kind of cool. In practice though, I found that this thing does not work as well as I would hope. Now, it is actually a pretty thin package, all things considered, considering the phone is on one side and then just have a screen. The screen itself is a really thin screen, and I like it a lot. But having it in this case does make the phone even bulkier, which is, it's already a huge phone at 6.8 inches, and it makes it even bulkier. And I usually keep it inside of this thing, but I can see why people may not want to keep it inside of this all the time. All right, so really, let's talk about what it's like to use this dual screen accessory. So first of all, software on this is decent, but not great. So let's say I have, for example, YouTube open on one screen and I want to switch over to the other screen. Now I can't just do like a gesture to just push this over onto the other screen, because that's just not how it works here. Instead, you have to open up the contextual menu and then say show. Well, you have to open up the app first. You can say swap screens or show main on dual screen. Show main on dual screen, and that'll swap the app over to the other side. And then if I want to open up something else, let's say a Pocket Cast on here, and then you can open up that menu again. And then if you want to swap these screens, you just a swap screen button. So you can see the Pocket Cast app will go to that side, and then on this side we'll have the YouTube app. So it works, and it works relatively well, except for the put main screen to sleep, because this thing will never actually go to sleep because you need it to power up that screen. So that part doesn't work. So if you want to use it like a little laptop and just watch something on here, that doesn't work. But you know what does work? Putting it in tent mode. So you can use this to watch your video and then just have this thing as like an accessory. I mean, it's basically just a glorified kickstand at this point, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, although it's something that I do find myself doing a decent amount. So yeah, and I just wish there was more of a like a gesture just to move it over, rather than having to click on an app, click on the thing, be like, go to the second screen instead of opening it up here. So that is one of my small complaints about this thing. It's still nice for doing things like multitasking. So for example, if I want to have Twitter open while I'm watching something. So let's say we're watching a live stream. I'm watching the new Apple Keynote, and I want to have Apple Keynote open on one and then tweet out my thoughts on it in the other one. I can do that really easily. Another good example, especially now during the pandemic, is you might want to have like a Zoom call open on one screen while you're taking notes on the other one. So for example, if you're going to school virtually, you can just have Zoom open, start taking notes on the other screen, and then you can just do everything on your smartphone. And then for me personally, I've been using this as a way to have my script on one side and then having the notes for what I want to have like B-roll in the video on the others, and it works really well for that, so I can get myself a shot list ready. Now, this isn't going to necessarily work for everybody. I don't know what everybody's use cases are for this. It's still something that I'm testing out and seeing all the things that I could do with this. Something that I haven't really tried, I want to try some more of, is gaming. So definitely I'll have more of this in the full review. But right now I will say that I like the dual screen accessory. I'm not quite sold on it yet. Now, speaking of sold on it, let's talk about pricing on this thing, because pricing is really weird, especially inside the United States, where you cannot buy this phone unlocked. You can only get it through a carrier. So you can only buy it from AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon. I believe will also have a model. I don't know if the Verizon one is launched yet, but AT&T one is this. The T-Mobile one's interesting because it doesn't actually have the Snapdragon 765G. It's got a MediaTek processor that's new. It also has 5G built in. Don't know, haven't tried that one, but this one has a Snapdragon 765. So yeah, and in terms of pricing, I think this phone is right around $600 or $700, and it comes bundled in most of the time with the dual screen accessory. And for that, that's actually pretty good value, especially if you're making good use of this dual screen accessory and you're gonna be sure you're gonna use it. It's actually pretty good value. And even without that, you're getting some pretty great hardware for that price. So yeah, definitely I think that LG Velvet is a very interesting phone. Now, of course, I will be doing my camera deep dives and things like that into this, because I'm actually really interested in what these cameras are capable of, which, by the way, didn't talk about. It's got 3 cameras, the 48 megapixel wide, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and then a 5 megapixel depth camera, I believe. So yeah, definitely interested in checking it out. By the way, do you see just ridiculously fingerprinty this phone is? That is because this does have a glass back, and it does have wireless charging built in too, which is really nice because, and wireless charging also works through the dual screen accessories. So I've just been throwing this on my wireless charging case instead of trying to remember to plug this thing in. It's been working just fine. But yeah, those are my rambling first impressions of this phone. I am looking forward to making more videos on this, and if you guys are looking forward to seeing them, make sure you guys subscribe so you guys don't miss those. And with that, that's pretty much it for this video. Like something if you liked it, subscribe if you guys loved it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!